The psychology of a serial killer. Imagine your neighbor. Nice guy. Waves every morning. Mows the lawn every Sunday. Brings cookies over at Christmas. If Hollywood directed his life, he'd probably be the first person to die. In real life, he might be the serial killer. Which is a deeply uncomfortable sentence, but it's also happened more times than you'd think. See, we have this strange belief that evil should look evil. It should wear black. Have creepy music following it around. Maybe laugh like a movie villain. Reality couldn't care less about our expectations. Ted Bundy was often described as charming. Dennis Rader was president of his church. John Wayne Gacy entertained children as a clown. But all of them ended up being a serial killer. Apparently, the human brain is terrible at spotting monsters, especially when the monster smiles. And that's because our brains are incredibly lazy. Not stupid, just lazy. Every day, your brain makes thousands of tiny shortcuts. Friendly smile? Probably safe. Good job? Probably trustworthy. Nice haircut? He is a gentleman. Psychologists call these mental shortcuts heuristics. They're incredibly useful. Without them, deciding what cereal to buy would require the processing power of a NASA supercomputer. The problem is that shortcuts can be manipulated. Serial killers don't usually earn people's trust by acting suspicious. That would be a terrible strategy. They earn trust by acting exactly how you'd expect a trustworthy person to act. Which brings us to one of the biggest myths about serial killers. People often imagine they're emotionless robots. They're not. They laugh, they joke, they get frustrated, help people in need. They can appear perfectly ordinary from their behavior. The emotion that's often impaired is empathy. Think of empathy as your brain's emergency brake. You hurt someone. Your brain immediately tells you to stop. But for serial killers, that brake doesn't exist. The engine still runs, the steering still works, but nothing is slowing it down. Now here's something even stranger. Most serial killers don't start by thinking, I'm going to become a serial killer. That's about as common as someone waking up and saying, you know what? Today feels like a great day to become a pirate. Instead, psychologists believe the behavior often develops over time. Violent fantasies become more frequent. The fantasies become rewarding. Eventually, reality starts catching up to imagination. And just like any habit, the more it's repeated, the easier it becomes. That's what makes this psychology so disturbing. It's not usually one giant leap. It's a series of smaller steps in the wrong direction. Another surprising pattern is confidence. The longer someone gets away with something, the smarter they start believing they are. Most serial killers aren't caught because detectives suddenly become geniuses. They're caught because eventually they get sloppy. Success has a strange psychological side effect. It convinces you you're smarter than you actually are, which is why people who rob one bank often rob another. Investors who get lucky suddenly think they're Warren Buffett, and serial killers start believing they're untouchable. So what's the psychology behind a serial killer? It isn't one single cause, it isn't one personality type, and it certainly isn't that they all look crazy. Instead, it's a rare combination of distorted thinking, impaired empathy, learned behavior, and an overwhelming desire for control. That's what makes a serial killer a serial killer.